Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan, and this acrylic painting tutorial is going to show you how to paint winter songbirds with acrylics on an 11 by 14 inch canvas. So this can double as an early Valentine's Day painting, winter painting with the little hearts hanging in the trees. I'm going to go over brushes and colors. Only two brushes for this, so the 3/4 flat and the number 4 round. These are Princeton Velvet Touch brushes. There are 9 colors that I'll be using in this painting. We can simplify the color palette if needed. These are Liquitex Basics acrylics, so titanium white, burnt umber. You can really use any brown that you have available. Light blue violet is the color used in the sky. Napthol Crimson is going to be used for the hat and scarf of the bird on the left and the heart. So if you want to change that color, you can. Unbleached Titanium is used in the sky and on the birds. Cad Red Light hue, which is orange, that's used in the feet and the beaks. Hooker's Green Hue is only used in the scarf. Phthalo Blue in the hat, so you can change those colors if you want. And Mars Black is an essential color that we're using in birds in the branch. Let's go ahead and get started. So 11 by 14 canvas, you can use any size canvas, any surface that you want to paint on size. This design works. And I'm going to dip my 3/4 flat in the water, kind of tap it dry, and grab the color light blue violet. So I have light blue violet and titanium white on my palette. So I am going to do just a very simple sort of color blocked, expressive, blended background. And that's just to kind of fill this canvas up and get the background painted in. So in this background, we have a darker lower right corner, and then it gets lighter into this really kind of light beige color in the upper left part of the sky. So add your blue, and then without rinsing, grab your white and blend your white. And I'm working kind of diagonally. So I'm going from the bottom right corner and I'm working my way towards the upper left corner. So I'm pretty much going to paint this lower right diagonal half of this canvas with blue and white mixed together. So big flat paint strokes going in different angles. Try not to over blend your color. So when you add your white and blend it wet on wet, you don't want to keep brushing over it. I also like these big angled paint strokes. It adds character into the background so we don't have to blend and smooth our strokes out. So when you have about the halfway point, without rinsing the brush, grab your beige and just kind of do the same thing. Big angled paint strokes in the upper left, create like a beige area in that corner, and then grab your white and blend your white in. So if there was too much blue on your brush, I would say definitely wipe the brush and rinse, because we don't want too much blue in this upper left area. We want it to be beige and white, and we want it to transition and kind of blend with the blue area. This beige actually blends very pretty with the blue, so it's when you brush over it, it actually makes a really pretty color. So take that and just gently blend your beige and white into the blue, and it shouldn't be too dark. So if it is looking too dark, if your beige is too dark, add more white to it to kind of lighten it up. And then I'm not really going to work this background too much. I don't want to over blend the color. Maybe a few more bright white paint strokes going in angles in that area, but I'm going to leave it so it's not over blended. The entire canvas is covered up, and I am going to let this dry before going on to the next step. So you want to make sure you either dry your canvas or come back and wait for it to dry and come back. Rinse your 3/4 flat brush off and load Mars Black on your palette. We're going to paint the tree branches. So I'm going to do all solid black tree branches, and then I'm going to add brown texture color over it. So if you want to, you can leave your branches solid black to kind of simplify things, or you can detail the branches up. So that's up to you. Either way, we're going to do solid black branches at first. So I'm going to take my 3/4 flat and load that into the black. Sometimes it helps to add just a little bit of water in there. It kind of loosens that black paint up and makes the flow a little bit better. And I'm going to start kind of in this lower left area and make kind of a big area, but I'm actually going to use the end of my brush to make this curved line that dips down to form that's the top of the branch. And then this is this kind of wider area on the left, and using the end of the bristles to just kind of slowly form the shape of the branch. So the branch is wider on the left and it gets thinner as we work to the right. And notice the edging of it. We have this little kind of sort of wavy edge to the branch. So it's not smooth, it's a little bit of wavy. Gives it kind of a natural look. Make it a little bit kind of thicker over here on the left. And then I'm going to do my first little branch right here. So I'm using the end of my bristles to draw that branch out. That's how I can get that thin line. It's because I'm using the end of the bristles. I'm going to do another branch sticking out over here. So again, using the tip of the brush, very, very slowly. I had only small bits of strokes at a time, and do another branch. You want to hold that brush very lightly and then release the pressure on the very end of the branch. Let go of the brush, push it up, and you'll get that thinner branch that kind of goes to a point. It gets very thin. So it's all about brush control with these branches. It comes with practice. I'm going to do another brush or another branch up here in the upper right. So this one, again, it's thicker at first, and then release the pressure to go thin. Little small paint strokes at a time. It also helps to make sure you're loading just paint on the end, the tip of the brush. So if you overload your brush, sometimes it's harder to control when there's too much paint on your brush. So small, light holding of the brush and release the pressure. And I have another branch. So like I said, we can choose to keep our branches solid black. We don't have to add color. If you want to add brown and highlighting to your branches, we can load our palette with burnt umber, and you'll need some fresh titanium white. We could also use the beige to help with our shading of our branches as well. I'm going to switch to the number 4 round brush. This is smaller and I'll have more control, and I'll be able to get in there and detail these branches up better with a smaller brush. So I'm going to take my brown, this is burnt umber, and I'm adding a little bit of beige to it. That's the unbleached titanium. I'm going to take my color and I'm just going to start painting the top part of that branch in. So the bottom of the branch is black, dark shadow. The top of the branch is where our light is going to be hitting. In fact, a lot of this is going to be covered by snow anyway, so don't worry about making it look too realistic. So I'm just taking this brown, and so my black, my first layer of black, that is not dry all the way. A lot of this is blending in. I'm just adding this brown, loose, sort of kind of a little bit wavy paint strokes. Maybe some of these areas, maybe there's a little bit more beige so it's brighter. So like right here, it's too bright, so I'm going to grab more darker and just gently kind of blend that in with the tree. And that's how you can get your color and texture on there with loose paint strokes that kind of blend, but not all the way. If you need to, get your black, go back. I'm adding black to the kind of bottom of this branch to make sure that that bottom part stays shadowy. So all your little branches that are sticking out, they get brown at the top and then black at the bottom. So I'll take my little bit more beige, maybe blend a little bit more beige in here. You kind of get that wood texture from your color that blends, and then you have different streaks of darks and lights in there. So I'm going to do the same thing to this little guy up here, lighter color, blend it down into darker color. You'll need to let this dry before going on to the next step. The next step will be drawing our birds. So you have the option of printing out my traceable for this. So just print it out, sheet of graphite paper under, and then trace the drawing. Or you can draw this with me. I'm using a regular pencil for this. So let's start by drawing simple shapes. I'm going to do an oval for the head and kind of a big sort of egg shape under that oval for the body. It's going to look a little bit like a snowman for now. And the height of this is only about 5 inches, so don't let it go too high. The width is about 3 inches wide, or the width of the body area is about 3 inches, head about 2.5 inches wide. I'm going to do the scarf, and that's going to overlap where the head and body meet. So that big scarf is covering up some of that oval, some of the egg shape of the body, and then the beanie. So the beanie is like this sort of like crescent moon shape that hugs the top of the head, and then kind of a half circle and another smaller circle for the fuzzy part of the beanie. Then I'm going to draw this kind of curved line that dips down, goes straight, and curves back up. So that is going to be like a darker area of the bird, and right here is where the beak is going to be. So the beak, I did kind of a sort of high arc shape, then an angle that points up, and like an upside down triangle below that. And then 2 small-ish circles under those 2 arc areas. And then his little wing over here on the left, it's kind of very, very close to his side. This one you see a little bit more of the wing, so this one's going to kind of be longer, and it's going to overlap here on the left. So he's slightly turned to the right, so we see more of this wing. And then we have these sort of fun tail feathers. So like right here, and draw these like curved lines that are kind of sticking outwards for his tail. And you don't have to draw little eyelashes on him, but I did. A lot of the face is going to be covered up with our first layer of paint anyway, but I'm just doing 3 little kind of curved lines on each side of his or her eyes. Little circle in the middle. Also, you don't have to draw that right now because that's going to be covered up with paint. We're going to draw basically the same thing again, maybe make it slightly different. Also, our branch over here is a little bit lower, so you want to kind of make sure you're drawing it same size, but it's going lower, if that makes sense. So draw the egg shape, the scarf, and I'm making this piece of the scarf kind of hang down and overlap the branch, and then the head shape. A little kind of oval shape for the head, crescent shape for the hat. And we're going to run into this tree. You may or may not have the same problem. You may, if you don't like that it's running into the tree, maybe draw it so it's a little bit shorter. And then your kind of arc shape on the head, and your 2 circles for the eyes. And the beak is like a high sort of arc line. This one had a, I did it kind of opposite of the other beak. The angle points down, and then the bottom part has another angle that points down. Little circles in the eyes, little eyelashes, our little wing on the side over here. And then we do see a little bit more of his wing over here on the right, although it's not like the same shape as the one on the bird on the left, but same kind of fun tail feathers, just kind of curved lines that are sticking out. I'm not going to draw the feet, so actually I will. It's just they don't really show up very well over the dark branch, but I could kind of just do simple little oval shapes. They're all kind of gathered together in threes. We are going to paint the birds in next, so we'll be using the number 4 round brush, and we'll use a combination of the brown, the beige, the black, and the white. So I'm gonna get some more white on my palette, and some more brown. And you'll also need black and beige on your palette as well. We're gonna start with the body area, the belly area of the bird on the left. So I'm going to take my number 4 round brush, and this is a light color, although there's some browns that are kind of blended into it as well. I'm just going to start by outlining that shape. I'm going to go around my wing as well. Actually, I'm just going to paint over the wing, and then I can, when it's time to paint the wing, I'll paint the wing over that. So I just did that sort of oval circular shape with white, and without rinsing the brush, I'm going to grab a little bit of beige and kind of blend that beige into it. So my background is not very dark, and that I'm not too worried about coverage, meaning the background's not showing through my bird. However, if your background is darker than this, I would recommend adding more white to it so that you get that kind of primed surface, and then doing the color over it after the white dries. So the wing is dark brown, so without rinsing the brush, I just grabbed my burnt umber and just painted that shape of that side wing in. And then I'm going to fill it in using paint strokes that kind of just go in the direction of that shape. There's a little bit of that light color that's kind of blending with it, and that's okay. I'm going to take my brown and I'm going to add, or I'm going to paint this wing over here on the right. This one I'm just dragging my paintbrush kind of outwards. Kind of get a little bit of feather texture when you do that to create that shape. And then I'm going to take my brown and just kind of paint a little bit of this brown on the bottom of the bird, and kind of just let that blend with our white and beige color that we initially painted it. It's a lighter color of the bird, so you don't want to add too much brown in that area to make it too dark. Just a little bit of shadowing on the bottom part of the bird, and just kind of leave it unblended. So our face area is also that light beige and white color. So I have beige and white on my brush, although there's still a little brown on my brush. So if it's showing too dark for you, I would rinse or wipe the brush. But I'm painting this whole face area with kind of these loose paint strokes that curve, kind of contour in that shape. So you have like different variations of color when you do that. I did have to paint over the face or the eye and beak, but that's okay. We can re-add those once that layer dries. I'm adding a little bit of white to the end of my bristles, and I'm going to do a few little white marks on the side wing. So it's dark, but I'm just going to take this and do these little kind of curved marks on the wing. It is blending with that wet brown. That's going to give that little bit of feather texture, and you don't want to over blend it. And then my tail, I'm going to take my dark brown and I'm just going to paint those curved lines that I drew earlier. I'm dragging my brush outwards to create those different kind of curved paint strokes. And you're going to find that that's like the same color of the wing. So you can take your black and just kind of outline where that edge of the wing is, so it doesn't mesh too much with the tail. So we now have a little bit more black on the wing, so that's darker and it stands out a little bit better. And I add a little bit of black on the right wing as well. And then this part of the bird's head kind of curved. Remember, we drew this kind of curved area. This is a darker area, so I'm taking my brown, all those other colors on my brush. Again, if you find that your brush is overloaded, you can wipe it off, rinse, start over. I like to not rinse my brush as much because some of the colors in there just kind of blend on the canvas, and that makes some pretty color variation when you don't rinse the brush every time you change your color. I am rinsing my brush now because I want to get his scarf painted in, and I'm going to load my palette with the color Napthol Crimson. So again, this is still the 4-round brush. I'm just going to paint what I drew in, short paint strokes at a time, and pretty much this like crescent moon shape that is hugging the top of his head. It's going to make it look like that beanie is kind of wrapped around the back part of his head, or her head. And white on my brush. So this part of the hat is lighter, and also when I add the white, it allows that shape to be distinct from that darker part of the bottom lining of the hat. So I'm using that white to just blend that red in with these kind of curved paint strokes, and then you get some color variation, but you don't over blend that color. I'm not going to paint the fuzzy part of that hat in. I'm actually going to wait until this dries so that I can paint that in later, because that texture part is going to overlap that top part of the hat, and we're not going to overlap it very well if it's still wet. I'm just redefining that hat shape, and then we can paint the scarf. So if your bird, like right here, that color, if it was saturated, I would wait for that to dry because you don't want this to mesh too much with your brown. It needs to be very distinct. So just the red, I'm outlining the shape and then filling it in with curved paint strokes. And then I'm going to take a teeny bit of black. I'm going to use black to kind of make this bottom part of the scarf a little bit dark and shadowy. Just a tiny bit of black is all that's needed. And I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom part of the hat. A little bit of shadowing on the bottom. So next I am going to rinse the brush and pretty much ditto what I just did, only on the right bird. So start over with your brush, rinse it off, start with your white and beige combination. So this time I'm just kind of double loading my brush in white and beige. Again, if you are having issues with too much background color showing through, you need to add more white or paint the entire thing white first, let it dry, and then go back and add your color. So I'm doing kind of rounded strokes with the white and the beige, and it kind of gives it a little bit of feather texture when you just kind of like do these sort of rounded expressive strokes with the beige and the white that blend together, but you don't have to over blend that color. Then without rinsing the brush, I'm going to grab the dark brown and do the wing. So this part is overlapping part of the body, kind of sticking out on the side. If you need to have it overlap the bird's wing on the left, you can. I did leave like a little slither of space between both of their wings. However, if their wings are touching, that's not a big deal. And then same thing over here, just dragging those paint strokes downwards. And then we're going to blend a little bit of brown on the bottom of this for that shadowing, but we don't want to add too much brown, so little bits of brown on your brush at a time, and just curved paint strokes going upwards. So the bottom part is a little bit shadowy. I'm going to rinse the brush and add Hooker's Green Hue to my palette. So that's the color I'm going to be using for the scarf of this bird on the right. You are definitely welcome to change the colors of the scarves if you don't want it to be too Christmassy. You don't have to do green and red. I'm actually going to have fun and add blue into this. So this is that light blue violet, and I'm just mixing light blue violet with green. I'm just going to paint the scarf in. So it's kind of a bluish green almost, or an olive green. And so same thing, just kind of outline your shape and fill it in. And then I'm going to do, so if you notice, I'm not following my drawing exactly. I'm actually making my bird just slightly shorter If you use my Traceable, the Traceable is to the finished painting, so yours is more exact than my drawing. So you don't have to worry about making your bird shorter if you use the tracer. But I'm pushing mine down just slightly. And then, so painting the head in, so we have to cover the eyes and we have to cover the beak area. So again, that's white and beige. Just fill that area in with paint strokes that kind of gently blend together. And then you can grab your brown without rinsing, and we can fill in the top area where this kind of curves down. Curves down, and it goes flat and then curves back up. And I'm dragging my strokes kind of curved up and outwards in the direction of that shape. Kind of outline the top part of the head with a little bit of brown. Maybe a few more little brown strokes on the bottom. And then I'm going to take my black. And I'm just going to add a little bit of black on the edging right here. Then let's rinse our brush, and I'm going to do a blue hat. So I'm going to load my paint palette with the color Phthalo Blue, which is a really rich dark blue. And I'm going to use the same techniques of painting the hat that I did from the left of the bird. So start with this bottom part of the knit hat. It's kind of a crescent shape that hugs the top part of the bird's head. It's thicker at the top, goes to a thin kind of point on the sides. And then the top part of the knit hat is going to have white mixed with blue. So without rinsing, grab your white, and this blends to a very pretty bright blue color. I'm going to rinse my brush and then go back to brown to paint the bird's tail. So when I rinse, I like to kind of squeeze the excess water off of the bristles or have a towel handy to dry it, so you don't want too much water pooling onto your paint from rinsing it. So I'm doing the same thing here with the brown, kind of painting my strokes outwards. I'm going to go back with my black and make this wing a little bit darker so that it stands out from the tail. And I did black little lines on both of the wings. And then a little bit of black here on the edging. I did this earlier, but I'm just making a little bit more, kind of these darker lines. Gives it a little bit more feather texture. Just kind of redefining this little area right here. Next, I'm going to work on the feet and the beaks. So I'm going to rinse my foreground completely off and load this with Cad Red Light Hue. If you don't have Cad Red Light Hue, you can use any orange that you have available. So you can use Cad Orange Hue or whatever brand of paint you're using, orange. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to take my orange, I'm going to call this orange from now on, orange and white together. So orange tends to be a not so opaque color, so mixing white into it helps it to stand out. However, when you mix white into it, it turns into more of a peach color. So if you don't like that, you can paint the feet white first, let the white dry, and then go back over it with your orange. But I am simplifying these feet to the best that I can. I'm doing just a group of 3 little oval shapes that are gathered together that connect the bottom of the body, and then they kind of go over the branch a little bit. my color is ending up not being even on all the feet, but I'll go back over the left foot of the left bird again. So I found that it works if you double load in white and orange, but just maybe add a little bit more orange to your brush so it doesn't turn out too light in color, or do white first and then go back over it with orange. For the beaks, I'm actually going to rinse my brush so I can start over and just have no white on my brush because I want to start with solid orange. So I'm loading my brush in just the orange, and I'm going to start with this bird on the right. So I'm going to do like a little triangle, a little curve on the bottom. I'm going to grab a little bit of red and actually mix this red with the orange just to make this orange a little bit darker. And then down here, little triangle. So it's going to look weird at first, but when we outline this and add a little bit of highlight, the beak will look a little bit better. In fact, I'm going to take my white and actually go back over in the middle part of this top part of the beak and just lighten that. So the top part of the beak is light, the bottom is dark. So we'll add black outline after this dries to kind of define it a little bit better. So I'm going to start with just the orange and do the little triangle at the top. The bottom actually dips down. I'm going to wipe the brush a little bit, grab some red so that the bottom part is darker. Little kind of triangle below that. And I'm rinsing the brush and grabbing white. Maybe mixing white with the orange so that I have a lighter color. I'm just going to go back in and add a little bit lighter color up top and grab a little bit more white because that's not doing anything. A little bit of white on my brush. Again, it's going to look kind of weird at first until we outline this. And so that top part is lighter, bottom part is darker. I'm going to rinse the brush and dry and grab black. So I'm going to do the two eyes on each of the birds. So a little circle on both sides, little circle, and grid it gradually bigger. So it's easy to start out small, like painting like a little black dot, and then just making that gradually larger. You can also use a black paint pen to paint these eyes. And then I'm going to repeat that for the other bird. I would recommend waiting for the beaks to completely dry before doing this step, or you can even do this with a black paint pen, but I'm going to carefully outline my beaks. I'm going to load the very tip of my brush in black and hold it very, very lightly to do this very thin line, and I'm going to start by outlining the middle part of the beak and the bottom. And then I'm going to outline the top part, again, very, very thin, loose line. And then I'm going to paint the eyelashes, which are optional if you want to keep things simple. You don't have to do the little eyelashes. I'm just going to take this and then do 3 little curved lines going outwards, and same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to go ahead and outline the beak over here. So middle part, bottom, and top. And then eyelashes. I'm going to rinse the brush next and do white. So I'm going to do a little highlight on the top part of the beak. So just like a little blobbed area on the left side, and then on this one too. If you end up putting too much white, you can always go back and add orange back over it. You just need just a little bit of white. Next, I'm going to do the highlight on their eyes. So make sure that your black circles are dry, and then take white and do 1 little dot in the upper right part of each of the circles. I end up making 2 dots. Later on, I'll add another set of dots. So you can decide if you like the 1 dot highlight or the 2 dot. The 2 dot gives it that extra kind of like bubbly cartoon look. And I'm just touching up around the beak with that beige color. Next, I'm going to paint the fuzzy ball that's on top of both of the knit hats. So I am going to started with white, but I quickly changed to red here. This is the 4 round and the Napthol Crimson, and I'm just doing little diagonal paint strokes, and these are going to go around to create a circle. So I'm loading my brush in white and red to create that like color variation, but each paint stroke is starting from the center of that circle of the ball, and I'm stroking outwards to form the shape of a circle. We could even grab some black, and that's how we can kind of darken some of this in the center, and just kind of dragging that out. The black also gives me a little bit more color variation that I need. And I'm also going to start painting little lines on the bottom part of the knit hat. Just added a little bit more shadowing here towards the bottom. But I'm going to take black, and I'm going to do little lines, and so they go kind of curved, but then they change direction. These ones start going the opposite way. Then I'm going to rinse the brush, and I'm going to do little lines on the scarf next. So load the brush in titanium white and do little curves. You can actually double load your brush in red and white so that it's not super bright, or you can just do white for the lines. I am doing red and white. Oops, just kind of touching this up right here. The green scarf is going to have like a piece hanging down. The red one doesn't have really anything showing, but if you want to paint the ties of the scarf flying in the wind or something like that, something creative, you can. I just left it simple. So next I'm taking beige and brown, and I want just a lighter version of this brown. So I added beige and brown together. Just adding a little bit of feather texture in this area over that really, really dark layer. And then I'm taking black, and there's a few little spots I want to outline, like right here, just to emphasize that shadow. And then on the top and bottom of his scarf, a very, very loose black outline. So I am going to repeat that for the bird on the right. I'm going to do the fuzzy ball on the top of his head, and that's also going to be blue. So rinse the brush, and the Phthalo Blue is what I'm using. Just start kind of in the center and drag your little paint strokes outwards in diagonal directions to create a circle shape. Go back with white for some color variation. And I decided not to do black for that one, but I am going to take white and blue and do the little lines on this part of his beanie. So little kind of curved lines that kind of change directions in the center. Double loading the brush in blue and white gives you that color variation. And then rinse the brush, and I'm going to work on the scarf. So I'm going to paint a piece hanging down. So I'm mixing green and blue together, actually. And let's see. Let's have, when we originally drew this, we had a piece that was hanging down. And just for fun, I'm going to have it go all the way. It's going to be really long. It's going to go all the way and cross the branch. So this part right here, you'll need to add some white if you're covering that branch, just so you can get that green to be opaque over a dark surface. So a little bit of white in there, blend it with the green, and we'll do some shadowing. So the piece that's hanging down is actually lighter in color. We're going to add some darker shadows on the left and right side of it, just so that can stand out a little bit better. This piece right here goes up a little bit higher than the neck, the piece that goes around the neck. And then I'm going to take some more green and kind of paint this scarf. Little pieces that are hanging down right here, just kind of drag your brush downwards. I did that green. And then you can add some white in there for contrast. And then I'm going to take my black. So if your brush is overloaded, do rinse it off and just do black, or maybe mix black and green. But I'm just going to take this and kind of shade the left and right side, just only little bits of black. You don't need a lot. We're not painting it solid black. We're trying to get the green to just be dark on the left and right side. I'm going to rinse the brush and touch up my hat a little bit more. I got blue, and I'm just kind of whitening the left and the right side of this, or rounding it out a little bit more. And then I'm going to grab my white, and then little kind of curved lines for more of that sweater texture. Next, I'm going to do a sort of knit pattern on the scarf. So I loaded some fresh titanium white on my palette, and I have my 4 round brush, and I'm double loading that in green and white. So I'm just taking this, and it needs to be lighter than that bottom color for it to really show up. So if it's not showing up, add a little bit more white. So I'm just making these kind of thick brush marks going in, so little angles, so diagonal and then diagonal the opposite way, and that creates that knit texture on the scarf. And I'm going to do the same thing on this part, so little diagonal lines with green and white. Next, I'm going to do the snow. So this part is really fun. You'll need a very clean brush for this and some fresh titanium white. We want to start with pure white. I'm going to start at the middle, but you can pretty much start anywhere. So you want to paint this so that some of the snow actually overlaps the top of the branch. And also, you're doing thick, sort of wavy paint strokes. Some of the snow might be piled higher and some might be lower. We will be adding shading on this, which is optional. You can also just leave it white without shading. So all of the surfaces of the branches get a little bit of snow. And there's snow on this branch as well. Shading is optional, so if you do want to do the shading, I'm going to use blue and a little bit of black for shading, but I'm going to start by mixing phthalo blue and white together. And I'm just going to take this, and on the bottom of the snow, you don't want to do this on the top, the darker parts on the bottom, and you just want to, I'm just kind of stippling. And the white, the first layer is still wet, which helps. So I'm just kind of destroying my paintbrush right now, but stippling this, and it gives it this really cool texture when you do dots. You can also go back, clean your brush, and add more brighter white on the top and then blend it down even further. Just doing some of the blue snow underneath the birds, like where it would be more shadowy. Then you can get more white, add more to it. Do a little bit of blue snow on the bottom of this branch as well. And now I'm adding a little bit of blue on the bottom of this one. You can use blue and white double loaded on your brush to help get that to blend together. Then this is optional, but I'm going to actually add just a little bit of black next and go a little bit darker with some of the shadows. So I'm going to rinse the brush and add a little bit of black to my brush. Test this out to make sure it's not too dark. It should still be blending, and if it's not, you can kind of double load it in black and white. But just doing a little bit of like dark stippling at the very, very bottom of the snow. And then I'm going to add another set of dots in the eyes, which is completely optional. You can decide to just leave one set of white highlight dots, but if you do two, it gives it that kind of like more of a bubbly eye look. So that's up to you. I'm going to take the white and do another little dot. So that's how it makes it look more sparkly, bubbly, but it also looks fine with just one dot. Next, I'm going to show you how to add snow on their hats. So any kind of like where there's a flat surface, there might be a little accumulation of snow. So I'm just taking the white, and we're not going to do this as thick as the snow on the branches, but just little tiny dots along the bottom part of the hat. And I'm going to do this on both hats. So just taking the white and doing little dots right just above the bottom kind of lining of the hat. And you want to stipple it. It's not laid on super thick. And when you stipple, you get that really pretty texture to make it look like it's just light dusting of snow. And then we can do this kind of on the edging right here on their hats. So it's kind of overlapping right where that edge is. It kind of goes over the hat and then over the background a little bit. A few little dots on the top part of the fuzzy part of the beanies. And then maybe we can do a little bit of dusting of snow on top of the scarves. It really adds pretty texture. You can do a little snow on the side of their wings. So next we're going to do the decorative hearts that are hanging on the branches, and this is super easy. I'm using the color Napthol Crimson, still the number 4 round brush, and I'm just going to paint 2 simple hearts that are going to be on strings tied to the trees. This is optional if you don't want to do the little hearts, but it's just kind of a fun, colorful decoration we can put in some of the blank areas of the painting. And then I like to just take a little bit of white and kind of blend that into the heart. Just gives it a little bit highlight, color variation, so it's not just solid red. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. And then I'm going to do the little string, so rinse, and then I'll do white. So just a very simple white line that goes up from the center of the heart and then kind of loops around the tree. And so while those hearts are drying, they have to dry before we can add little bits of snow on them. We can take our white and do little snow dots all over our background. So I'm just very simply doing white dots everywhere. And then when the hearts are dry, we can do the same technique for stippling little snow texture on the top of the hearts. And the last final touch to this painting is the little music notes in the upper left. So I'm going to load my palette with black. You can also do this with a black paint pen. I'm just going to take my round brush and paint a variety of different music notes. I did this mostly in the beige area of the sky, although you could do them all over the sky if you want. I just felt like this had a little bit more balance to the painting. Since we had hearts on the right side, we can add music notes on the left. You can also add little white highlights on the music notes after they dry. And this is the conclusion of how to paint winter songbirds. Hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and thanks for painting with me.